There is a hidden history that's been deliberately obfuscated from the peoples of the world, and that's why I am on the trail of the Nephilim. Folks, I'm your intrepid host, L.A. Marzulli. Welcome to another episode of On the Trail of the Nephilim. We're going to talk about, and I just love this stuff that comes across my desk. The headline is, Scientists Have Deciphered the World's Oldest Map, and it reveals the location of, guess what, drum roll please, I'm not going to tell you till after the break. Here's a word from our sponsor. Countless Americans will waste time, energy, and money this year trying to reduce wrinkles, but failing because they miss the real problem, which is a decrease in their natural collagen reserves. Folks, let me explain. Scientists found that after the age of 20, our bodies produce about 12% less collagen with each decade as we grow older. If you experience an excess of sagging skin or wrinkles, for your age, you may, underline may, be collagen deficient. Plus, knowing you should supplement collagen isn't enough. You have to use the right types of quality source collagen to have the best chances of reducing the appearance of aging. This is why I use this amazing new collagen mixture to revitalize and rejuvenate my skin. I take it every day. Unlike typical collagen supplements found on store shelves, this is highly effective because it combines the top 5 critical, important types of collagen for skin health. It's formulated to help reduce visible signs of aging, reduce wrinkles, promote a youthful glow, promote elasticity, and promote skin hydration. Folks, if you want to do your skin a favor, get it today. There's still 51% off only at www.healthwithla.com. That's www.healthwithla.com. Plus, if you order today, you'll get a free VIP live health and fitness coaching for life, a free new ebook entitled The 14 Foods for Amazing Skin, a 60-day satisfaction guarantee, and free shipping. Once again, that's www.healthwithla.com, healthwithla.com, or simply click the link in the description box below. Folks, you get a 60-day money-back guarantee. This is unbelievable. You get 5 key types of collagen. There's no clumping unlike other collagen supplements. Folks, check it out, healthwithla.com. That's healthwithla.com. So, here's the headline. Scientists have deciphered the world's oldest map, and it reveals the location of Noah's Ark. Okay, get this. Discovery of absolutely epic proportions has just been revealed, but the corporate media in the United States almost entirely ignored it. A team of scientists led by Dr. Irving Finkel has deciphered the oldest map in the world, and we are being told that it actually reveals the location of Noah's Ark. This is huge news, but the corporate media in our country was so focused on the presidential election that they barely took notice of it. Let me stop right there. We see this all the time. Now, this week there was I'm going to jump from Noah's Ark to UAPs because it's all related, folks, on some level. So Wednesday, and you want to check out the interview that Karen and I did together talking about the congressional hearing. The needle really didn't move, but what it did to me is it put it in concrete. It's making it really clear that the phenomenon is real. So during the presidential run-up to the election, the whole UFO UAP thing was sidelined. Welcome to our corporate media. So just like Noah's Ark, no one knows about this. So let's continue. Fortunately, many foreign news outlets publish feature stories about this amazing discovery. For example, the following comes from the Jerusalem Post. Scientists have recently unlocked the secrets of the world's oldest map, a 3,000-year-old clay tablet known as the Imago Mundi. Mundi is world, the image of the world, which is believed to show the location of Noah's Ark. The ancient Babylonian artifact, etched with cuneiform writing, a script using wedge-shaped symbols, has puzzled archaeologists for centuries. Discovered in what is now Iraq in 1882, the tablet is housed at the British Museum, where it has become one of its most famous collections. Let me just stop right there. See, it says what is now Iraq, because Iraq was just created out of the Ottoman Empire. And I'm just going to, a little sidebar here, a little history lesson, because most people don't know this. The entire Middle East, most of the Middle East that we see now, was created at the end of World War I. After the Turks, the Ottoman Empire, the Turks ruled the Ottoman Empire, that was all together, right? It was part of Turkey, and the Brits and the French went in and carved up the Ottoman Empire, because the Turks sided with Germany. Germany lost the war. And they created the modern countries of Iraq, Syria, Lebanon, Jordan, and Israel, i.e. Palestine. So when people talk about, the Middle East and the rights for Israel to remain in the land, then you know what? There was no Iraq in 1882. It didn't exist. It was part of the Ottoman Empire. So I think it's a history lesson that most people really need to understand and realize that most of this nonsense that we see, from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free. Give me a break. That's the eradication of the nation of Israel. I'm reminded once again of Amos 9:14. This is what my Bible is open to. And the prophet says this: I will bring back the captives of my people Israel. Check, 1948. They will build the waste cities and inhabit them. Check, I've been to those places. They have rebuilt the waste cities. They will plant vineyards and drink the wine from them. Check, I've been to Israel. I've seen the vineyards. They will also plant gardens and eat the fruit from them. Check. Israel exports lots of fruit. Not so much now because it's in a war footing. Here's the kicker. I will plant them in their land, and never again will they be plucked up out of the land I have given them, says the Lord your God. Amos 9:14 and 15. Put that into your spirit, man or woman. Memorize that and understand that if Israel is plucked up out of a land, then God's a liar. Guess what? God's not a liar. What was written will come to pass. What was foretold is unfolding. Okay, let's continue. The Imago Mundi depicts a circular world map illustrating early Babylonian ideas about the world's creation. The map is thought to show the entire known world of the time, with Mesopotamia at the bottom center. The ancient Babylonian artifact deeply puzzled researchers for many years. But now, the code has been cracked, and the reverse side of the artifact contains incredible, stunning information. And you can see, John Adam, please put that on there. You can see the man holding it in his hand, and there's the cuneiform writing. So let's see what it has to say. And I think you'll find this absolutely amazing. On the reverse side of the artifact, passages reportedly provide a guide describing what a traveler would encounter on their journey, including a path to Urartu, and specific instructions of how to get there. One passage says, to the fourth, to which you must travel 7 leagues. Another passage reportedly instructs those on the journey to go through 7 leagues to see something that is sick as a parsiktu vessel. The term parsiktu appears on the ancient Babylonian tablet, referencing the scale of a vessel meant to withstand the legendary Great Flood. Amazing. Researchers believe that the Urartu, also known as Ararat, is linked to an ancient Mesopotamian poem recounting a family who, like Noah, landed their ark to preserve life following the 150-day flood. As the flooding ended, they were safely stationed at one of the peaks of Ararat, or Urartu, which aligns with Ararat, the Hebrew term for the mountain where Noah's ark is said to have come to rest after the flood. I was floored when I first saw this. According to Dr. Finkel, there is no doubt that Ararat is the Hebrew equivalent of the Assyrian Urartu. The first place you come to is Urartu. It's drawn on the map. Now, the interesting thing about this is, in the Bible, Noah and his ark landed on a mountain where the name Ararat, and Ararat is the Hebrew equivalent of the Assyrian Urartu. That's quite a meaty thing. Quite an interesting thing to think about, because it shows that the story was the same. And of course, that one led to the other. But also, that from the Babylonian point of view, this was a matter of fact thing, said Finkel. This was a matter of fact thing. They all knew about it. He added, if you did go on this journey, you would see the remnants of the historic boat which saved all the life of the world for the long-term future. This is one of the biggest archaeological bombshells in history. And the British Museum has released a video in which Dr. Finkel shares more details about this remarkable discovery. So I don't know whether you can, I think you can do this, John. If not, I will download it and I will send it to you so the folks can watch Dr. Finkel talk about this. So if Noah's Ark really did come to rest in Urartu, is it still there? If you go to that region today, and I just love this because this ties in to our good friend, Rick Renner, who was friend on the show. We interviewed Rick about his book. We carry his book, and he also talked about Noah's Ark. So let's get into this. If you go to the region today, there is a geological formation that matches the exact dimensions of Noah's Ark that we are given in the Bible almost perfectly. It's hard to ignore the striking shape of the Durupinar Formation from the ground. The site appears as an enormous 538-foot long mound, tapering to a point much like the bow of a ship. For decades, the feature alone has drawn adventurers, scientists, and Ark enthusiasts to the region, hoping that this natural wonder could be the key to unlocking the truth behind one of the Bible's most enduring stories. The physical characteristics at the site align closely with the biblical description of the Ark: a length of 300 cubits, a width of 50 cubits, and a height of 30 cubits. In order to determine the approximate shape of the formation, scientists tested nearly 30 samples of rock and soil that were gathered from the site. Was it merely a natural formation, or could it truly be the petrified remains of a legendary Ark? In order to answer this, researchers began collecting nearly 30 samples of soil and rock from the site, each carefully chosen to help unlock the geological secrets of the mound. The scientific text determined that the samples of rock and soil were between 3,500 and 5,000 years old. And this matches what we would expect if Noah's Ark really is sitting inside the Durupinar Formation. Their analysis, conducted at Istanbul Technical University, aimed to determine the formation's age and composition, focusing on identifying signs of ancient human presence or evidence suggesting the area had once been submerged underwater. The sample's initial dating places them between 35 and 5,000 years old, coinciding with the biblical timeline of Noah's flood. The team also discovered clay-like substances and marine materials within the soil. Of course, that is not all of the evidence that we have that this really could be the resting place of Noah's Ark. I love this. Ground penetrating radar, get this, has revealed intriguing angular structures. So nature doesn't do things at right angles that are not typically associated with natural geological formation. So yes, we see some, nature can do right angles, I retract that statement, but again, intriguing angular structures. In the period between 1970s and the mid-1990s, interest in this peculiar site surged, thanks in large part to the exploration and research efforts of American adventurer and researcher Ron Wyatt and a team of Turkish scientists. More recent investigations carried out in 2014 and 2019 by independent private geophysical survey teams have further contributed to the intrigue surrounding the Durupinar Formation. These studies, using ground-penetrating radar, unveiled subterranean layers and intriguing angular structures, characteristics not typically associated with natural geological formations. To me, the images that ground-penetrating radar have produced are quite conclusive. And we know that large amounts of petrified wood are inside the Durupinar Formation. Folks, they really need to go in and dig this thing out. You know, I mean, if I was a multimillionaire, I'd be over there at a New York Minute. In fact, I personally know someone that made a journey to the formation many years ago and touched the petrified wood of the Ark with his own hands. I very much hope that the Durupinar Formation will be carefully excavated during the years ahead, because I want the whole world to see that the Ark really is there. Needless to say, so many other historical accounts in the Bible have also been confirmed by archaeologists in recent years. And this is, of course, his new book, and you can check that out. Let me see, what is the name of his book? Hold on. Michael's new book is entitled Why. Is available in paperback. Michael T. Snyder, Substack.com. So let me give that to you again, michaeltsnyder.substack.com. And he is the author of this article, which is just really fantastic. I'd love to get him on the show, Michael, if you're reading this. So hearing this or seeing about it, let me just close by saying this. In our time, archaeologists have made all sorts of amazing discoveries in the Middle East, but none of those discoveries has ever contradicted any information that we have in the Bible. Archaeologist Dr. Nelson Glueck once stated that no archaeological discovery has ever controverted a biblical reference, and he was one of the most highly regarded archaeologists on the entire planet. Another very highly regarded archaeologist, Dr. John Ora Kinnaman, also had a tremendous amount of respect for the accuracy of the Bible. He once said that of the hundreds of thousands of artifacts found by archaeologists, not one has ever been discovered that contradicts or denies one word, phrase, clause, or sentence of the biblical narrative, but always confirms and verifies the facts of the biblical record. Wow. Isn't that fantastic, folks? Here's the video that Dr. Dr. Irving Finkel talks about. And John, run that video. I'll be back in just a second after that.
In the British Museum, we have objects of all sizes, some pinheads and some gigantic, and everything in between. And once in a while, one of the very smallest things turns out to have information in it which is totally unexpected. My name is Irving Finkel, and I'm a curator in the British Museum in the Middle East Department, and welcome to my corner. So what we have here is a clay tablet. As a matter of fact, it is not a real clay tablet, it is a replica, because the real clay tablet has to be on exhibition all the time, and also it's very delicate. We couldn't wave it around in front of the screen and say, look at this, look at that. That would be terribly irresponsible. So, but we can use this replica for demonstration purposes with impunity. The ancient Mesopotamians, Sumerians, Babylonians, all those people, they wrote on clay. That was their natural activity. And clay tablets, which have impressions of writing on, are pretty good. They're pretty stable. You can handle them. You can't play football with them, but they're pretty reliable. But what happens in antiquity is there are wars and buildings collapse and fires and disasters and people die and they go away and other people come and trample on things. And when archaeologists find them, it is not often that an ancient inscription on a piece of clay comes to light in perfect condition. So this tablet, you can easily see that it's not complete. There's stuff missing here, there's stuff missing there, and it also looks like elephants have danced a polka over the surface, because many of the signs are damaged or squashed. But nevertheless, this piece of cuneiform inscription is a remarkable thing. This is the oldest map of the world in the world. It has two sides. This is the front or obverse, and this is the back or the reverse. And the reverse consists of lots of lines of cuneiform in different ruled sections. So it's full of information, even though it's a bit damaged. But the other side is the remarkable thing. Firstly, there's some lines of cuneiform ruled across very firmly at the top. And this is about the early creation of the world and how animals were put in the sea in different parts of the universe. It's a kind of brief summary of creation, which has nothing to do with the map, because it's a clear border between that and this. And it's this which is so exciting, because if you look carefully, you will see that the flat surface of the clay has a double circle drawn in the surface of the clay. Now, the double ring is very important because it has cuneiform writing in it, which says it's the Bitter River. And this water was deemed to surround the known world, because the area inside the double ring is ancient Mesopotamia itself. Now, this word Mesopotamia is the ancient Greek word for what is modern Iraq. So inside the drawing of this circle, we have very interesting things. There is a great river that runs from north to south, which is the Euphrates River. And the river is straddled by a long oblong, which is obviously the city of Babylon. So this is a very important ring of water, because it meant for the Babylonians they had a sort of idea of the limits of their world, where they lived, in about the 6th century BC, with these important rivers which brought life and food to them, waterways for transport, all the way down to the Persian Gulf. It was kind of depicted in small. And if you look carefully at the picture, you will see that in the surface of the known world there are these rings drawn with little bits of cuneiform inside those. And those tell you the name of the city which it represents, or sometimes the tribe. So you have encapsulated in this circular diagram the whole of the known world in which people lived, flourished, and died. However, there's more to this map than that, because if you look at the outer ring, you will see that going off at different angles are triangles. Sometimes people say they are islands, sometimes people say they are districts, But in point of fact, they are almost certainly mountains, because the idea is that if you go across the water, you see these jutted, pointed things above the horizon, which are remote lands far beyond the limits of the known world, which go out in different directions from the perimeter of existence. And they are, for the Babylonians, places full of magic and full of mystery. Now, when you look at the diagram sort of geometrically, it is evident there were originally 8 of them. And we can be sure of this partly by calculation of what makes sense, but also on the other side, the inscription which I showed you before tells you what is on each of those triangles. There was a place where the sun was never seen. There was a tree that had jewels instead of fruit, and there were giant birds that couldn't fly, all those sorts of things. There were traditional stories associated with each of these districts, recorded together with the diagram to show where they were. Well, of course, probably nobody ever went there. We're talking about the imaginative world of cosmology, of theology, of tradition, of inherited ideas. But the thing is this: up until quite recently, we didn't know which description on one side went with which triangle on the front. And this is an irksome matter, because we know there's supposed to be 8, but there was nowhere near 8 on there, so we had to work out which place the 3 which we could read clearly matched up with the descriptions on the back, and it wasn't really possible. And then something happened. One of those missing triangles came to light in the collection. Now, in the 19th century, when tablets were excavated, they were very careful to bring back everything. So a big lump of clay, any small bits lying around it, any small bits not lying around it, anything they could find with writing on was carefully excavated. And sometimes the very small pieces, which we couldn't join to anything, were put in special trays for the long-term future, when it might be possible to see what we could do about them. Now, what happened was this. Once upon a time, there was a lady called Edith Horsley. And Edith Horsley loved cuneiform stuff, and she came to classes that I used to teach after work once a week to learn about cuneiform, and she was very, very enthusiastic about it, and very attentive, and a good student. And when the class came to an end after several months, she said she wanted to do something more.
For as long as anyone can remember, this has been a map with a central piece missing. But from today, no longer. Nicholas Glass reports on an unexpected moment of archaeological excitement in the British Museum.
The British Museum has boxes of tablet fragments, but it's only in the last 2 months or so, when Edith Horsley was first invited to work at the museum, that they began trying to sort things out.
Well, even as a child I was intrigued by the signs that are used in cuneiform, but it wasn't until I attended Irving Finkel's lectures that I became an addict.
As a volunteer, Edith comes in just once a week. She was asked to keep an eye out for any piece with a geographical or astronomical image on it.
I saw this quite small piece with this triangle on it and the signs inside, and I thought it was probably a map. So I put it in the little section where I put the pieces that I think are of special interest, because Dr. Finkel can't go through all of these trays, obviously. So I put those aside, and he became quite excited when he saw it.
She put aside a little pile of half a dozen pieces that didn't look like everything else, and I went through them one by one, and she said, look, this one's got some lines on it, and as soon as I saw it, I knew it must belong to this tablet, because, as I say, it's such an unusual thing. It was actually rather funny, because the map wasn't in its normal place, it was downstairs on exhibition. And so I got out an old photograph of it, and the photograph was at a different scale. So when I put the fragment on the photograph, I was sure that it must belong, but I couldn't quite see where it would fit. And it was only the following morning that I took the fragment downstairs to the exhibition where it's on public view. And by looking at the original tablet, I could see straight away that it fitted perfectly in the hole. And it did. And as a matter of fact, when I put it in experimentally, in the gallery in front of Edith, we couldn't get it out again afterwards. It was such a snug fit, and it had to go down to conservation to be dealt with properly and glued in position. So, having opened a bottle of bubbly and danced around in the gallery, the time came to think very seriously about what this meant, because the tablet is very famous. It's often reproduced in all sorts of different encyclopedias and books about ancient ideas and histories of maps, of course, and it's quite a famous object. And to make a join to that was an extraordinary thing. But then there was the question of what did it tell us? Against one of the diagonals, there was, in cuneiform, the expression, the Great Wall. I'm going to read you what the scribe tells us about this triangle. To the fifth, which you must travel 7 leagues. That means you have to row across the bitter river for 7 leagues before you can land at the foot of the mountain. The Great Wall, its height is 840 cubits. Its trees up to 120 cubits. By day you can't see in front of yourself. By night, lying on ... it's still broken. Then you must go another 7 leagues in the sand, and you must ... because there's always ... because nothing is perfectly preserved. But the important thing is, we now know which of the triangles goes with the description of this gigantic wall. As a result of Edith's discovery, we've got 3 of these triangles in a row. And that is a great boon, because you can imagine, if you have isolated triangles, trying to match them to the description on the back, it's very difficult to get anywhere seriously and reliably. But when you've got 3 in a row, all you have to do is to find 3 descriptions in a row, and it stands to reason that you'll be able to somehow match them up. And that is what we did. And the discovery was very clear once you realise that the counting was anti-clockwise and not clockwise. So number 4 says, to the 4th, to which you must travel 7 leagues, because it's like a kind of fairy tale. Everybody knows it's always the same introduction. So each time you have to travel 7 leagues across the water. Then it gets a bit broken. Then it says, you see something which are as thick as a parsictu vessel. This parsictu measurement is something to an Assyriologist which makes their ears prick. And the fact is, it's only once otherwise known from cuneiform tablets. And it's rather an interesting cuneiform tablet too, because it is the description of the Ark, which was built, theoretically, in about 1800 BC by the Babylonian version of Noah. And in this account, the details are given, and the god says, you have to do this, this, and this. And then the Babylonian Noah said, I did this, this, and this. I've done it. And I made these structures as thick as a parsictu vessel, he says out of his own mouth, in the original story. So this word parsictu is like a kind of noise. It immediately locks in to this thing on the map. Immediately and incontrovertibly. So what it means, speaking plainly here, if I may speak plainly here, is that if you went up this mountain all the way with your sandwiches and breaking regularly for lungfuls of fresh air, eventually you would see against the night sky or the dark sky of the outer universe, silhouetted the ribs made of wood as thick as a parsictu vessel of the wreck of the Babylonian Ark, which, like the one in the Bible, came to rest on a mountain. And if you come down the mountain and cross over the water back to the homeland, the first place you come to is called Urartu. It's drawn on the map. Now, the interesting thing about that is that in the Bible, Noah, in his ark, landed on a mountain where the name is Ararat, and Ararat is the Hebrew equivalent of the Assyrian Urartu. That's quite a meaty thing, quite an interesting thing to think about, because it shows that the story was the same, and of course that one led to the other, but also that from the Babylonian point of view, this was a matter-of-fact thing, that if you did go on this journey, you would see the remnants of this historic boat which saved all the life of the world for the long-term future, from which we, of course, profit today, still there in the crags against the dark sky. So what does this actually mean to us? Well, let's imagine that we can borrow a time machine and go back to ancient Mesopotamia. I've always thought this was a good idea. We'll have a party. We'll all go together. And when we get there, somebody might say, any idea where the Ark is? And I go, well, we have the map. Here it is. And in fact, it's there. That's where it is. And what we have to do is get in our rowing boat, off we go, and we will see it for ourselves. So although this is a map which would not encourage you perhaps to motor across Iraq today in a Land Rover, when it comes to operating beyond the limits of the known world, into the world of imagination, it's indispensable. So for the first time we can pronounce with authority that if we were an ancient Babylonian, we would know where to go to see the remains of that wonderful boat. But then there's the actual question of who wove it together. Well, it's often the case with cuneiform tablets that at the bottom of the reverse there's a bit that tells you the name of the scribe, what's called the colophon. And unfortunately, the scribe's name is broken. There's no trace of it left. But his father's name is there, because in Babylonia they always said Mr. So-and-so, son of Mr. So-and-so. And the dad was called Itsuru. Now, Itsuru is the Babylonian word for bird. Now, this is a rather an interesting thing, because we know all about people's names in Mesopotamia. They usually meant something intelligible, like servant of such and such a god, or she's beautiful beyond compare. No one is called Bird. There's no other case of a person called Bird. It's not a very good name. So what does that mean? You look at this for the first time in the museum case, which I hope you will now do and peer through and make out the details, you would think, I see, it's a sort of bird's eye view of the world. Well, I think that's what it is. It's a birdie family, and this is a bird's eye view of the known world and what lies beyond it. So that gives it a special kind of warmth of understanding, because its failings, as it were, from a cartographical point of view, are irrelevant. It is not what they're interested in, and it's given us a tremendous insight into many aspects of Mesopotamian thinking. It's also a triumphant demonstration of what happens when you have a very small, totally uninformative and useless fragment of dead, boring writing that no one can understand, and you join it onto something in the collection which is much bigger, and a whole new adventure begins all over again.
Hey you, cuneiform nerd. Do you want some more cuneiform? Of course you do. Below is a playlist full of all the videos we've ever made concerning cuneiform, and you can see in the top left corner right now a preview of the next episode of Curator's Corner, which also covers cuneiform. We are going to the ancient Sumerian city of Girsu in southern Iraq, where Sebastian Ray will talk you through 2 bricks that were found in the same building. It's pretty normal, buildings are made of bricks. The weird thing is that these bricks were made 1,500 years apart from each other, but were in the same building. Also, crazy thing, Sebastian's excavated both of these bricks, but one of those bricks has been excavated twice previously. And the first time it was excavated was 2,300 years ago. Archaeology is weird.
Folks, thanks so much for watching. I really appreciate you coming here. If you haven't subscribed, please check that out. Our 10-box DV set is now available. lamarzulli.com, lamarzulli.com. Rungs of Disclosure. I heard from Charisma Media that it's flying off the shelves like hotcakes. They can barely keep it in stock. We're now into our 3rd printing already. So lamarzulli.com. By the way, it is interactive. If you go to page 5, and I'll get there in just a second, in the book, it will say this. Also, check out the website, rungsofdisclosure.com, for videos, interviews, and other content. So if you go to lamarzulli.com, and you can also get to rungsofdisclosure.com to that. So the whole point of that is all the footnotes that are in the back of the book are now available. So you can just click the links and go there and see that for yourself. Also, our UFO updates are also included on that site. So how cool is that? Thanks so much for watching, folks. I'll be back again next week. Really appreciate your patronage. It is the end of the year, getting close to that. If you want to contribute to our film company, just send us a check, or you can go to donate to us, to Spiral of Life, or for Church Alliance. That's a tax deductible. Just write it in for films, because that's how we finance our films. And then we will put you in the credits at the end of our film. By the way, our film on the Holy Shroud, Holy Fire, I want to thank my business partner, Gil Zimmerman, for working on this film. I have been out running around at conferences, and it should be available probably in January. Gil will be coming down soon. Also, number 9 in On the Trail of a Nephilim, we are beginning post-production on that. Lots going on. I will see you at the Prophecy Watchers Conference. And that is sold out, but you can still sign up for streaming. I'll be speaking twice, Friday and Saturday. I think the schedule will be posted soon. Thanks so much for coming here, folks. Remember, there is a hidden history that's been deliberately obfuscated from the peoples of the world, and that's why I am on the trail of the Nephilim. Thanks for watching.